everyone, welcome to today's video. Over the past several months, I've had to reevaluate how I handle storing the footage and editing the footage and all the behind scenes stuff of the video that's not necessarily filming it, which has been a lot to process. But one thing that I didn't realize would happen to me, that has happened to me quite a few times, is sometimes I will get an idea for a video and then I will get super excited about the idea and I will carry out filming the entire thing. But then I will look over the footage once I filmed it and realize there's not really a story here. Like, what am I trying to convey? And like, sometimes I feel okay, I'll just like delete the videos. It's like, okay, I'm not going to deal with it. Like, I do know after a certain amount of time, I'm probably not going to work with the video. But sometimes I'll still hold on to it. It's like, I know it's not where I want it to be, but I don't want to get rid of it just yet. And I just have to figure out how to make it work. I realized maybe if I put them all together, it'll be more satisfying of a video than if they were all by themselves, kind of like the sum of the parts. They all have something in common. They were all kits that I decided I was going to work from, then see what happened with the kits. And well, I am going to put the videos together and we can see if that makes the story more interesting, because there is entirely a chance that I'm being too hard on myself. I mean, why not share, right? Not everything that comes out of here has to be picture perfect. Yeah. When I say I've been holding on to this footage, some of this footage is over a year old. Okay, let's get started. Hello everyone! Welcome to today's video. Back on local yarn store day, I went to my local yarn store and I bought this kit. It was one of the 2 kits that I bought that day. Actually, I bought 3 mystery kits that day, but 2 of them at the store. And I appreciate not knowing all the details before I go into something. So this is a safe way to act out that particular urge. This one intrigued me because it said pretty pink and gray and chunky weight and happy vibes. I have not looked inside it since I've gotten it. And I think today's the day we're going to find out what's inside and what we're going to make. So before I open it up, I want to put a couple of my predictions out there. Because it's chunky weight, it's probably like 1 skein of each type of yarn. It's either 1 really big skein or it's 2 smaller skeins of a pink and gray yarn. I predict that pink is going to be like a hotter pink, kind of like this type of pink. And I do predict the gray is going to be kind of similar to this. I don't think the colors are going to be very light. I think they're going to be like light, but they're not going to be like pale, if that makes sense. And it says happy vibes. I don't get super light gray being super happy vibes. I'm pretty sure there are no tools in here. I think it's just the yarn from when I've been squeezing it. I don't really feel anything hard. I do expect to get a pattern in here though. And I expect the pattern is going to be either like a hat or some sort of scarf cowl thing going on. I don't expect the pattern to be terribly complicated. I think this is the type of pattern that's supposed to be a quick knit. I guess I'm assuming it's going to be a knit pattern too. Over crochet. I don't know why I'm thinking that. But here we are. It could be either one. I'm going to guess this is more likely to be knit though. I'm expecting a pattern. I know the yarn is in there. I'm not expecting any tools. Now that I got my predictions out of the way, we're going to see how right I am. We're going to open them up now. See me break open. That was not what I was expecting. They said pretty pink. That looks more red to me. It does feel kind of rough. There are 2 skeins. Also, the pattern is not included here. So I'm guessing they're free patterns. They gave me 2 links and I can choose whether I want to knit or crochet. One is a 1-hour beanie. One is forest stroll, which could mean anything. Honestly, I don't know. I don't really get forest vibes. Ooh, there's a pink there. There's some pink in there now. It's a bit rougher of a yarn than I would willingly pick up for myself. Well, it's 53% wool, 47% acrylic. Okay. I guess you need 2 skeins in order to completely take care of the project. But it's good value. Because for the mystery kit, I paid $22 and 1 skein is just $19. I nearly got like 50% off, which was good. I guess part of it is I need to check to see what is needed. It's nice that they gave you both a knit and crochet option. Some people only know how to crochet, some people only know how to knit. In this way, they at least have something that they can do. I personally know both, so it doesn't really matter for me. There is something appealing about a 1-hour beanie, though. I just need to see what forest stroll is, which it looks like it's in someone's library. I'm going to check back in once I've actually looked on Ravelry and I see what these things are, and then picture what this would translate to. I'm back. I have decided to go with the knitting project, the forest stroll. I did look at the beanie, but I cannot in good conscience recommend the beanie, simply because on multiple devices, when I tried to go through to it on different browsers as well, it wouldn't let me go to the site. It was like, this is dangerous, turn back. So I tried on Safari and Chrome. I ended up going through it on my computer, and when I looked at it, the pattern looked incredibly basic and not what I was looking for, even though I am working on a bunch of different shawls right now. Even though I'm not really someone who wears shawls, it's like, we can give it a try. Even when I went onto Ravelry's website search function and tried to find it that way, it was very difficult to tell. It wouldn't show up any results, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but it seemed clear to me the universe wants me to knit this particular yarn instead of crocheting it, so we're going to knit it. We're not going to tempt fate in that way. So it says that there's a gauge. I'm going to pay attention to it. Probably not. 11 stitches and 11 rows should be 4 inches in stockinette on US 17 needles before blocking. Am I going to block? Probably not. I don't have size 17 needles. The closest I got are my 15 boys here. So I'm going to be using 15 and recommended circular needles. It looks like it's worked flat. Yeah, it's worked flat, so it doesn't really matter if I use circular needles or not. As for the actual pattern itself, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I should have no problem going through this like boom, 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 yeah. At this point, I don't really predict me having any problems with this yarn. So I'm going to get started on probably this skein first, because I can actually see the pink as opposed to this, which looks like it's red. Well, I can see the pink in there, but this one gives me more the instant gratification for the pink. Although, I mean, I was close. I was much closer with the gray, yeah? Oh, on this one I was closer with the gray. I did say it was going to be either a beanie or a cow, and I was right on that too. So at this point, I'm going to go take this down. I'm going to start working on it. I think I'm not really going to show myself making this one so much. I will show off the finished product and explain what I thought about it. I finished the forest stroll cow. I'm actually wearing it right now. You can see it like right here. It turned out really nice. Worked it pretty quickly. As for following the directions on the pattern itself, it went pretty quickly without any hitches whatsoever. So the pattern writer took the easy way out, which I totally get. It makes the pattern shorter and much less daunting. So it basically had these 2 sections that you repeat, the seed stitch and the stockinette, and they were both 8 rows. And they mentioned that the seed stitch and the stockinette stitch are working alternating sections 5 times. So I just quickly did the math for myself so that way I wouldn't lose track of where I was. And even though this didn't really apply, after a while, it became more like I didn't have to follow it row for row. It's like, okay, I'm on the stitch section now. Say that 5 times fast. And I just have to go like back and forth between the different stitches. I know the effect that they're trying to go for. Even though I didn't use the recommended gauge size, it still ended up more than big enough in order to fit me properly. I was considering using 2 skeins at once, and I'm glad I didn't because there's a color change in here between the 2 yarns. Can you see where it is? I understand if you don't. Happened right around here. Because the yarns do look very similar to each other, although the skeins were 2 different colorways. I remember like looking at the skeins and going like, these don't look like they're the same colorway. And when I looked at the labels, they weren't. One that's for the majority of it, the one that has like the super hot pink in it, that is $78.57. This one here, the one that I have left with the red, that is $78.32. I'm assuming the colors by the numbers, I'm assuming they're really close to each other. They might not be right next to each other, but they are really close. So I wasn't impressed with this yarn when I took it out, but I became more impressed with it as I was working with it. It's super soft, like it doesn't look like much when it's like this. Well, when it's worked up like this, it's amazing. It looks amazing. The colorways were like, this is stunning. And I thought it was gonna be a really weak yarn, but you can see I can kind of pull it pretty tight. It's staying. I'm pretty happy with that. It's a pretty strong yarn. That being said, I am glad that I decided to knit with this instead of crochet, although I may end up going to crochet with this yarn in the future. I'm very glad that I decided to knit with it first. Now, I also see why the pattern recommended that I had the circular needles for this. This is the start of the pattern right here, the very bottom. So I started with like 2 or 3 stitches, or maybe I think it was just the 1 stitch actually, and it grew from there to over 100. I was using flat, like straight needles. And as the pattern was smaller, it's like, oh yeah, this fits perfectly fine. As I got wider and wider and wider, the stitches got really dense on the needles, and it was very hard to tell how big the piece actually was unless it was spread across 2 needles. But that's more my fault. That's not really the pattern designer's fault, because the pattern designer was straight up in the fact that she said, use circular knitting needles. There was supposed to be a a tassel on the bottom of this corner here. I didn't include it. It felt too frou-frou for me for whatever reason. Frilly for me. Even though I do like tassels, I just didn't like the tassel there on this particular piece. I did include the braid here though, in order to provide like the cowl, its tie function if it's worn the way the pattern is mentioning it, which is like this. I don't know if I'm going to keep this one or give it away to somebody else. But yeah, this was a pretty quick project. It only took me a couple hours over a period of 2 days. And it was a delightful pattern. I could see many different people liking this, and it's a great pattern to show off both like different textures, but also if there's like a yarn with different colorways, it shows off those different colorways. So when it came to this mystery kit here, this is the stuff they promised me. Pretty pink and gray. A bit heavier on the pink than the gray. Although with the skein that had more of the gray I didn't use. But yeah, definitely the pretty pink although with this skein it looks more purplish to me. But that's okay. It came through on that. Chunky weight, yeah, pretty thick yarn. And happy vibes. Which, yeah, I would say this is a piece of clothing that would make me happy to wear it. So, very happy vibes. Overall, I would say that this was a success. The only thing that I wish was different was, I wish that the crochet pattern that it led me to didn't lead for the antiviral software to pop up on my devices. But other than that, I would say this mystery kit was a success, and I would absolutely do this again, which, I mean, I have another mystery kit from these people. I will be trying it again. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day. Hello everyone! Welcome to today's video. On April 29th, which was local yarn store day, I went to my local yarn store and they were selling mystery kits. So this is one of the 2 mystery kits that I bought that day. I already used one of the mystery kits, that's where the shawl came from, and that went pretty well, so my expectations for this are pretty settled for what I think it's going to be. I do think there's more yarn in here than there was in the other one. I do know at this point it's only going to be yarn and 2 different patterns, although the patterns are just going to be Ravelry links. So it says Cool Maltese, chunky weight, funky, and warm. So Cool Maltese, I'm expecting a variegated yarn in the color scheme of purple, green, blues, which quite honestly are my jam, as I'm wearing 2 of those colors without even trying right now. Chunky weight, it's going to be pretty thick yarn. If there's a good crochet pattern in here, I will go for the crochet pattern because I did knit on this one. But chances are, if it's chunky weight, I am more likely to diverge to knitting. I now know that they do include like a crochet and knit pattern in these things. And funky and warm. So one, I'm expecting the yarn to be like really thick. I have a feeling the texture may change The thickness of the yarn may actually change to create a weird texture would be my guess for this yarn. And funky makes me think there's a warm color that slips every so often into it. That's my predictions for this mystery kit. Let's open it up now. Huh. It's literally the same brand of yarn that I used to make this. So we have this gray green. There are 3 skeins in it this time. Ooh. There's a blue. And there's this dark green. These are both shawls. So for the knit, there is a stitch sampler shawl. And for the Ravelry, there's a half granny square shawl. You know what the funny thing is? I was thinking about what I could do with the shawl and who I could give it to. And one of the people I was considering giving it to would have been a little kid who has a sibling. And it's like, if you give it to siblings, you have to give a gift to all the siblings when you come visit. The other sibling's favorite color, like, prefers blues. And I was thinking, like, oh, maybe I should go get a blue. And it's freaking here, man. I don't know if I'm going to follow through with that idea or not. We're going to see how the shawls go. Especially since I was thinking, like, this could be like little kid cape turns into a cow as the kid gets older. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to have to look at the 2 different patterns here, the half granny square shawl and the stitch sampler shawl, to see what the 2 patterns look like, to see which one I prefer making. But I like these 2 better. Like this one, I mean, as I hold them up here, this seems like the oddball. These 2 go together very well. This is kind of the oddball. And also the fact that it's the same yarn in the kits like this makes me feel like this was something that got discontinued and the store owner was trying to get it out of stock, which, if that was the case, no shade. I totally understand. Especially since I know that this particular brand, Katia, I recently read something that they are stopping wholesales in the United States, which is where I live. But yeah, I'm gonna come back when I figured out which of the 2 patterns I'm going to make. Well, I made the choice, and then I just went ahead and made the whole shawl before I remembered to film what my choice was. So I decided to go with the crochet shawl because the knitting was more effort than I felt like putting in at this particular moment in time. Because YouTube is kind of like a timeless entity and you could be watching this video anytime. Just for context, this was the 5th shawl I started in a month, and I just wanted something quick. I didn't want to make something that was too intensive. Yeah, this is the biggest thing that I've done with the granny square stitch ever, and it turned out really nicely. I'm going to insert a quick clip of it now. I originally brought a bigger hook, brought a hook like this big to do the whole project, but then I didn't like how it was laying. Also, I wasn't following the instructions the way I should have. And when I switched down to the smaller hook size and decided to actually pay attention to the instructions, it turned out so much nicer. I could actually see how you could keep track of where the center was, because the center needed 2 chains while everyone else needed 1 chain. I was like, really, just 1? But when I got it a tighter tension, it went together so much better. That being said, now that it is a tighter tension, it is rougher. It's definitely a lot softer when I worked it looser. I figure with multiple washings over time, hopefully this will soften out a little bit, especially if we get like some sort of soft soap or whatnot, because right now it's a bit scratchy. This is the way I was expecting the yarn to feel when I was using this type of yarn. The other shawl that I knit from the other mystery kit, I didn't use one of the skeins, and I'm very happy with that decision because right now these 2 colors still go together very well, even though I'm not crazy about the touch of gray that's in there right now. That was there with the green, so it made me think the 2 greens were probably more meant for each other, but the way that the green and the blue works together, amazing. But yeah, I also appreciated once I got the hang of the pattern, it literally only had 3 rows. So the way that it worked, it was 2 setup rows, and then 3rd row was like, this is the row you keep on repeating until the end. I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, what was nice was I didn't need to use a stitch marker to keep track of the rows. It's like, I just keep on doing this until I feel like I want to stop. And I don't get to make too many projects like that. So that was pretty nice. There was an option for a border. I decided to ditch it. I was kind of done with it. I have some yarn left over. I'm thinking at this point, I may have had enough for one more row. I might not have though. Either way, I decided to not be playing yarn chicken with this, and like by the size that I stopped, I mean, you saw how draped across the table. It's relatively big, especially since I'm expecting this to go for a littler human. But even so, if you just put it on me, oh, as I rearrange without cutting the camera screen, you can see it doesn't look terribly small on me. Yeah. That was a good mystery pattern thing. I think if I do these mystery yarns in the future, I might not be so reliant on the pattern inside. I just might take more from the actual yarns and then come up with like another project. I think I want to do this from a different spin instead of just following the pattern that's inside the kit. Yeah, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. I suffered a professional disappointment today. I spent over 5 hours editing a video and the file got corrupted, so I lost all that work. I'd gotten over an hour's footage edited down to a half hour. I was super proud of that, and the editing software just went So I'm going to deal with my disappointment by attempting something ridiculous and hopefully a healthier manner than other ways I've dealt with disappointments in the past. Back several months ago, I bought a cow kit. The name is 24-hour cow kit. So part of me wonders if I can actually make this in 24 hours worth of work. I'm going to deal with this a little bit differently than how I dealt with 24 hours before. I am not going to force myself to stay up 24 hours. My sleep schedule is already messed up enough as it is. But I will keep track of how long it takes me to make the cow. Cow as in this connected scarf, not the moo moo cow. I'm gonna open this up and get the materials from it and make it. I believe it's a knit pattern and it looks like it's simple enough. I should be able to just bing bang boom. I have a feeling this will actually take me less than 24 hours. It'll take a significant amount of time, but it'll take me less than 24 hours. So we're gonna see. We have some mohair and some wool. This is the yarn. Oh, we got a wool alpaca and silk mix. I'm gonna have to count the winding part as part of my 24 hours for this, yeah. And then this is the mohair, which I don't think I'm going to touch that. I think I'm going to work with that as is. But I'm going to use them both. I'm going to follow the instructions and we're going to see how it goes. I've already got some Taskmaster on, and if I run out of the New Zealand Taskmaster, because there's only 2 episodes legally out right now, I will switch to one of the British versions or something else. We'll see. Yeah, let's get going. Also, for a reference point, it is currently 11:30 p.m. It's a little over an hour later. It's almost 12:40 and I have made this much progress, which probably doesn't look like a lot, but is a lot considering that I've had to frog and redo this. First, I had to wind the thicker yarn into a cake because it wasn't hanking. If you try to work with yarn and a hank, it just tangles. I didn't bother winding the mohair though because it's already pretty thin and messy. You can barely even tell that it's there, honestly. It's just like a nice little hint. But I was looking at the pattern and the pattern is very, very simple. I can get things done pretty quickly, I'm guessing. But also, something to keep in mind is I actually read the instructions. I didn't read the instructions, and the flavor text starts with, "Don't worry, this cow doesn't take 24 hours to knit. We just finished ours in a 24-hour time period and thought it would make a catchy title." I mean, yeah, it is a catchy title, I'll give them that, but it kind of ruins the point of this video, yeah. But if I tried to pretend that I'm always on top of things and not exactly human, that's less fun, isn't it? So we're gonna follow through with this idea and then see if I feel like keeping the cow for myself or if it becomes an impromptu Christmas gift. Who knows, right? Anyway, the pattern says to just continue until I use up the rest of the yarn, and one of them has 100 meters. No, one of them has 100 grams and the other has 25 grams, and we'll see which one runs out first. Surprisingly, I think the 100 grams is going to go up faster because from what I know of mohair, it does not work up fast. Anyway, we'll continue, although I'm going to get a snack first. It is currently 1:30 a.m., which means it's been 2 hours, and the pattern is starting to reveal itself, which is always a nice point in the pattern to reach. And it also means that I don't really need to look at the instructions. I have no idea what row I'm on, especially since the pattern didn't give an end game for the rows. And since I can kind of read the pattern as I go along, I kind of know what needs to happen next, provided I don't lose track. Yeah, it's nice progress for today, or nice progress for 2 hours. And at this point, the magpie part of my brain wants to go to a new project, so I'm going to listen to that, and I will pick this up. I've put in almost 5 hours worth of my life into this, and you can actually see it like coming apart, like coming together. Yeah, just like the nice stretchy diagonal ribbing situation. And the instructions say use it up until I reach the end of the yarn. But I think it might be finished before that because I have this much yarn left of the thicker yarn. If I want to have it so I can actually still see the cowl, I might be able to get 2 cowls out of this, who knows. The mohair doesn't look like there's a dent made into it at all. It's literally just a blob. I don't even know where the strings are, quite honestly. I just see like a glint of purple metallic-y stuff. I guess the mohair is adding a bit of a furry thing because I could argue that, oh, maybe the mohair is giving the fur. I was about to say I could argue that the mohair is not making much of a difference at all, but while the mohair isn't making much of a difference visually, except for adding like a little small glint, I do feel the furriness. I do feel the furriness of the mohair here. But yeah, we're just gonna keep on going, see how I feel about it. I do appreciate the fact that I found a purple stitch marker to contribute to the whole color scheme that this is going to be. Here is the 24-hour cowl. And while it took me longer than a 24-hour period with the way that time passed in order to complete it, with like the breaks I took in between, the actual process of making this cowl took less than 24 hours. In total, it actually took 6 hours and 20 minutes. I didn't use all the yarn that was available. I still have over half of it left because I knew if I went too long that I would feel uncomfortable wearing it. But what I wasn't expecting was for it to be itchy. I guess I don't like the texture of mohair, which, I mean, how else was I going to know that? Yeah. I know it's not necessarily wool because I feel the wool and I like how the wool itself feels. But the mohair, I'm not as crazy about the texture of the mohair. So yeah, now I have a cowl that looks amazing, but I don't know if I'm ever going to wear it. Maybe I'll put it up for sale on my Etsy shop. Who knows? I love how the pattern turned out. I would make this cowl again. And look at this stitch detail, yeah? It's pretty amazing. It's for getting me out of my rut. I'm not sure this is going to be it, but see. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day. So now that I've made these projects and the filming of it did not go the way I wanted to, I guess the important thing is there anything from these experiences that I can take forward with me without necessarily having to complete the cycle of creating the same video structure over and over again? And I think my mind didn't want me to necessarily get rid of these videos because I do think there is something worth learning from these videos, yeah? First one with the knitted shawl. That was an absolutely amazing pattern. I have made that pattern 2 more times since then. The second one's just literally waiting to be finished off with like woven ends and whatnot. But it's a super simple pattern once you get the hang of it. And it's like enough for it to be mindless for me, but it's also just interesting enough to keep things going. I haven't necessarily kept the ones that I made except one, and so I don't really wear it all that often, but I could definitely see myself making that another time. Or even altering it in the future so that way it's more already connected around. That is a really fun pattern to knit. It's for the crochet granny triangle shawl. I haven't repeated that pattern, but I have experimented more with other granny cluster shapes. Granny square in itself is relatively boring to me compared to other things I could be making. It's not something that exactly gets me excited. But since I've tried that pattern on the yarn community on the internet, something that's kind of popped into the zeitgeist of the community is the hexagon cardigan, which is the same build-up structure as the granny square, except it's done as a hexagon. so that the way that the sleeves fold, you got 1/2 of a cardigan. And if you do 8 instead of 6, you go for like octagon, you can get a pair of pants that way. While I'm not necessarily thrilled by the square, I am intrigued by exploring the other shapes that are formed. And for last one, the 24-hour cow, main thing I've taken from that, I do not like how mohair feels against my skin. It is incredibly itchy for me. I don't want any clothing that touches me to use mohair. Now this does severely limit what I can use the mohair that is already in my collection for, because obviously you're not going to give a baby anything that has mohair in it because babies are messy. Giving mohair as a gift to other people, you have to know if they would also find that messy too, right? Fortunately, I have found a use for some of it, but mohair is also very, very thin, and there's a lot of it in this game. I guess this is a reminder to future Becky that necessarily trying to complete a kit is not a video in itself. If I were to attempt making this type of video again, because I just might, you know, I think it may serve better as a time lapse and actually see the item getting made. The shorter videos could still work, but I think if I actually show the item being made, that might work a little bit better for those types of videos in the future. I'm just thankful that now that I've simply dealt with this footage now, that I can actually move on to other things and stop wondering why I have this footage stuck in a photo roll. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.